It was the kind of betrayal I never saw coming. My husband, the man I'd trusted with my heart, ran off with my sister, the one person I thought I could always count on. At that moment, my world shattered. But what I didn't know was that 15 years later, karma would show up in a way I never expected, and it would be far sweeter than I ever imagined. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell, so you never miss an incredible story like this one. I had always been the type of woman who believed in the sanctity of family, the trust between loved ones, and the idea that no one could break the bond of a strong, supportive relationship. But when my husband, Daniel, left me for my younger sister, Emily, it felt like the very foundation of my life had been ripped from beneath me. It was as though the ground I stood on had crumbled into an abyss. I remember that day as though it was yesterday. The day everything changed. The morning had started like any other, with the soft hum of the coffee maker filling the kitchen and the smell of breakfast wafting through the house. I was in the middle of making pancakes when I heard the doorbell ring. At first, I thought it was the delivery guy dropping off groceries, but when I opened the door, I saw Daniel standing there, looking like he had seen a ghost. He was holding a suitcase, his eyes avoiding mine. "Daniel?" I asked, confused. "What's going on?" He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he stepped inside, his gaze shifting nervously. I couldn't understand why, but something in his eyes told me something wasn't right. Before I could ask him anything more, the words came tumbling out of his mouth like a confession. "I'm leaving," he said, his voice weak. "I'm in love with Emily. I'm moving in with her." I froze. The world seemed to tilt around me. My brain struggled to process what he had just said, my thoughts spinning wildly. My sister, Emily. The one person I had trusted more than anyone else in the world. It felt like a nightmare. How could he do this to me? How could he betray me in such a brutal, unimaginable way? How could you? I finally managed to choke out, my voice breaking. Tears started to form in my eyes, but I blinked them back. I wasn't going to let him see me fall apart. "It just happened," Daniel said, as if his words could somehow justify what he had done. "I'm sorry, but this is how it is now." My heart sank. The man I had loved, the man I had spent years building a life with, was now standing in front of me, telling me he was leaving for my sister. It was as though I had been hit by a truck, the weight of betrayal crashing into me with such force that I couldn't move. The anger, the confusion, the hurt, it was all too much to bear. As if that wasn't enough, Emily walked in just moments later. She had a nervous smile on her face, but it quickly faded when she saw the look on my face. She stood frozen in the doorway, her eyes flickering between Daniel and me. And then, as if she couldn't hold it in any longer, she spoke. "I'm sorry, I didn't want you to find out like this," she said, her voice trembling. "But I love Daniel, and we've been seeing each other for months now." The words hit me like a slap in the face. Months, they had been seeing each other for months. I couldn't comprehend it. My own sister, the person I had been so close to, had been lying to me, deceiving me in the worst way possible. And now she was standing here, telling me that she had been in love with my husband. I didn't know whether to scream, cry, or simply shut down. "I don't know what to say," I whispered, feeling the weight of the situation pressing down on me. "You're both unbelievable." Daniel and Emily didn't seem to understand the gravity of what they were doing. It was as if they were so caught up in their own little world that they couldn't see the devastation they had caused. But at that moment, I knew something that they didn't. My life was about to change in ways I couldn't even imagine. They left, of course. Daniel with his suitcase in tow and Emily following him out the door like a lost puppy. I was left standing in the kitchen, staring at the empty space where they had just been, trying to process what had just happened. My mind kept replaying the words they had said, trying to make sense of it all, but nothing made sense. Nothing at all. In the days that followed, I felt like a shell of the person I once was. I tried to stay strong, but it was hard. I didn't know how to move forward. My friends tried to offer support, but it wasn't enough. The betrayal cut so deeply that no words could heal it. I had never imagined a future without Daniel, and now that he was gone, I was forced to navigate a life I didn't know how to live. The first few months were the hardest. I had no job, no direction, and no purpose. Daniel had been the provider, and now I was left with nothing but the remnants of a life I no longer recognized. My savings were dwindling, and the thought of starting over felt overwhelming. I felt like I had nothing. And I was so angry. Angry at Daniel, angry at Emily, but mostly angry at myself for not seeing the signs, for not realizing that my entire life had been a lie. But then, something incredible happened. Slowly, over the next few years, I began to rebuild my life from the ground up. It wasn't easy, not by a long shot. But with every setback, with every heartache, I became stronger. I found a job that allowed me to support myself. I took up hobbies I had always wanted to explore but never had the time for. I met new people, formed new friendships, and slowly but surely, I started to feel like myself again. Time, I realized, had a funny way of healing wounds. The raw pain and the sense of betrayal never fully went away, but I learned how to cope with it. I started to look at my situation not as a tragedy, but as an opportunity to find myself again, to grow stronger, to become the woman I was meant to be. And along the way, I discovered something even more surprising. I had everything I needed to be happy. It was within me all along. But life, as it tends to do, had another twist in store for me. 15 years after Daniel and Emily had left, I was living a life I never thought possible. I had a successful career, a beautiful home, and a sense of fulfillment that I hadn't known in years. But then, one day, out of nowhere, I received a message. It was from Daniel. He wanted to meet Dot. At first, I was hesitant. The thought of seeing him again, after everything that had happened, made my stomach turn. But curiosity got the better of me, and I agreed to meet him at a cafe. When I saw him, I almost didn't recognize him. He had aged, his hair turning gray, his face lined with the passage of time. He looked broken. Not the man I had once known, but a shadow of him. He sat down across from me, his eyes filled with regret. "I don't expect you to forgive me," he said quietly. "But I want you to know that I've thought about you every day since I left. And I regret what I did. I was a fool. I didn't know what to say." Part of me wanted to tell him how much he had hurt me, how much he had destroyed my life. But instead, I just nodded. I had moved on. I had forgiven him, not for his sake, but for mine. Holding on to that anger would only hurt me, and I had learned the hard way that I didn't want to be weighed down by the past. "Well," I said, taking a deep breath, "I'm glad you found some peace. I have to. And honestly, I don't need an apology. I've learned that sometimes the best revenge is living well." He looked at me, his eyes softening with what I could only assume was admiration, maybe even envy. "You're right," he said quietly. "You've done better than I ever could have imagined." As I walked away from that meeting, I realized something. Karma had finally worked its magic. Daniel had lost everything he had once taken for granted, and I had gained everything I had ever wanted. I had a life of my own, one that was rich with love, success, and joy. It wasn't the life I had planned, but it was the life I had created for myself. And it was better than anything I could have ever hoped for. In the end, I didn't need revenge. Life had already given it to me. And in the end, I had won, not because I had bested anyone, but because I had found happiness on my own terms.